Well, hello everyone. We're back with another feature here talking to two amazing people about the film Ghost Town. I am joined today by Maya Mizrahi, director and choreographer, and then Mackenzie Kugel, sound designer. Thank you, ladies, for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having us. I love that we're color coordinated.
We are. This is just amazing. This was, for those of you that are watching, this was not planned at all. We were just
Not
all
at all.
feeling the vibe today.
Totally.
Well, let's go ahead and get started. Can you guys tell us a little bit about the film Ghost Town?
Yeah, so first I just want to say that we're so excited to be a part of the Garden State Film Festival. And on top of that, I think it's just amazing that the festival is taking place right where we actually shot the film.
Wow.
Um,
Hey.
So to give you some background, the piece is essentially a piece that's about self-rediscovery. It was inspired by what happened during the COVID pandemic. I know for myself personally, I definitely went through a process of rediscovery. You know, a lot of people were laid off, many people went into isolation. And what I realized is that a lot of who I saw myself and my purpose as was directly tied into my career aspirations and my social circles. And when that all sort of came to an abrupt halt during COVID, I felt like there was an element of loss and displacement that I felt. And so the piece was inspired by coping with those emotions.
Wow. Whew. Well, that was enlightening. And I think a lot of people can also relate. COVID was super impactful on a multitude of levels, very multifaceted across people lost other family members that they might have known or friends lost their jobs. So I can only imagine what it was emotionally for you to have to write this and then also direct this. But you're also the choreographer. Can we talk about that a little bit as well? I need to know more.
Yeah, so it's a dance film. And essentially the reason why we decided to go with the dance film is I have a background in dance. Mackenzie and I have actually worked on a dance film previously, right before this one.
Okay.
Uh, and we just felt that it's much easier to express overall stories and concepts with words, but because we wanted to express a specific emotion, you know, having movement convey that I felt would be very powerful, and it's a language that I feel I speak best. That's why we decided to go with dance as the genre.
I love that. And I have to say, I grew up dancing. So I am now just so excited to hear that we're able to take because that's what dance is. I don't think a lot of people understand that, but a lot of the direction, the choreography that people see on stage is really coming from a deep place within, from the choreographer of whatever they were experiencing. So I can only just imagine how much we're trying to convey through a worldwide pandemic. So huge shout out to you for being able to do that. Now, Mackenzie, you're the sound designer for Ghost Town. Tell me, what was that like to work on this piece, and really, I'm assuming, using your passion to make this film come to life?
Yeah, I really I love working with Maya. We're both deeply collaborative people, I would say, and as a sound designer, I love working collaboratively. And so the process was really just all about open dialogue and kind of from week to week we would meet and sort of talk about different inspirations and together sort of gather what we were feeling like this piece really needed.
Mhm.
I really enjoy seeing the choreography before I design, or at other times kind of designing while the choreography is also being produced. But in this case, Maya had filmed before I designed, so I was able to kind of look at the movement and see what it was wanting to sound like. And
Mhm.
that's really kind of how I work, is responding to what's needed or what's wanting to come through, and gathering and sort of scaffolding from there.
Wow. I have a question for both of you. In terms of the process that you just spoke about, which seems absolutely amazing, taking both of your passions, your interests, and molding them into something that a lot of people can now view, and I'm sure be impacted by as well, and go back in time and remember, unfortunately, all of what COVID brought. What was it like for you two in particular to have to not only go through COVID during that time, but then to create a film about it as well? And
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll start. It was definitely a tough process, especially because Mackenzie and I were actually working remotely the whole time. And our timelines were a little bit off. So as Mackenzie had mentioned, we filmed the entire piece before she even started designing. So the piece was filmed in silence. And I think doing it during COVID was an interesting experience because the boardwalk area was less crowded to an extent, which was beneficial for us during the filming process because we had more space. Mackenzie, what do you think?
I think something that stands out to me is as a musician, as a theater artist, there was so much fragmentation that happened, I think, for all artists during this time of not being able to be in person with one another. And we were really kind of fragmented from each other and isolated. And I loved this opportunity because even though Maya and I were apart from each other, we were in the casino together in a way, creating this piece in this very abstracted sense. And it allowed us to kind of enter into this process and create this community, this communal experience for both of us in building this together, which is interesting in terms of the concept of building something apart, right? And also that the building itself, the casino itself, is kind of in a state of disrepair. So is this there were just these multi-layers of kind of being able to feel this fragmentation and also build something within it.
Definitely. The process was revitalizing in a way because I think we had both come from pretty long breaks from creating. I think a lot of artists during the pandemic really had to stop a lot of what they were making, and this sort of gave us the opportunity to create again, to work together, and to revitalize things.
I love that. I love talking to filmmakers and directors and choreographers and sound designers, especially this year, because I think you kind of can't have a conversation about producing a film without talking about COVID and how that impacted the process. And so I love just to hear how you guys were still able to take your passions and really create something. I know it's going to be super impactful, but I am going to switch gears just a little bit so we're not so sad and thinking about the past. Mackenzie, loving your background. How many instruments do you play? I
play a number of different instruments. I am my first instrument was violin. As you can see, I have 2 violins up here. I'm classically trained, but I also play jazz and folk and do kind of experimental music. Actually, the primary instrument used in Ghost Town is violin, but I've processed it and put it through a number of resonators, so it sort of has this ambient quality, but it is violin in its original form. But I also play mandolin and ukulele and a little guitar and piano, so.
Okay, well, for those of you that are watching and feel like I do, and that we need to pick up another hobby to get to Mackenzie's level, maybe Mackenzie will be great enough to kind of host some sessions because, wow.
Yes, for sure.
I love that. So speaking about process, we talked about COVID, we talked about what you did with this film in particular, using your passions. What would you say to the next generation coming up that might have to figure out, where do they start? how are they going to be able to use their passion and produce a film? What would be a good piece of advice that you would like to kind of pass on to them?
I think you just have to start. You just have to go for it. I mean,
Exactly what I was gonna say.
like this is the second film that we've worked on together. And even for the first film, my roommate did the videography for it. And she just took a phone. We went outside into the street and we just filmed. And eventually, same thing with this film, things start to grow. If you have people that you love working with and who you trust and you can have a good artistic process with, they'll support you. And then you just never know where things are going to go, especially for a dance film. I think a lot of dancers are used to choreographing for stage, which is a totally different environment. So you kind of just have to get in there and you just have to experiment and see where it goes.
Great advice. Mackenzie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, well, I completely agree, Maya. I think starting is really the only thing you can do a lot of the time, you know. And like you said, you know, the people that you're involved with, just supporting each other through it. I think I would also just add that it's really important to kind of trust that if you have an idea and you have the people that you want to work with, and you have the inspiration to do something, that you just trust that the process will guide you, and that you trust each other, and that there will be surprises and there will be things that you can't control, and that's okay. And that it's just important to trust that you'll make something, and that's what's most important, and that's what's beautiful. So
Definitely. I mean, I just want to say, like, when filming in an outside location, so many things could go wrong. Like, it could rain,
Weather, sound.
the lighting,
seriously.
everything. So sometimes it works out in amazing ways. Let's say, like, the lighting changes, the entire look of the film could change drastically. That's what I think is so beautiful
Yeah.
about being in that casino building where we're outside engaging with the weather and the wind, and you see the strings from the ceiling. You know, that was unexpected. Those were just elements that appeared during the process.
I love the idea of teamwork and really just kind of focusing on the finish line, because to your point, and I think this is in life in general, but whatever you do, it's always going to be something. There's always going to be an obstacle in your way. And it's just really important to have that overall end goal, that vision of like, okay, it might be rough right now, but we're going to push through it and get
Right.
to the
Yeah.
other side.
Right. Yeah, totally.
And now when Ghost Town is over with and people are done, they're watching, the credits are rolling, how do you want them to feel at the end of your film? What was the goal, or maybe the overall impact that you were hoping this film has?
That's a good question.
Besides us learning how to want to dance and now, be sound designers, because that's just cool.
I think for me, and then Mackenzie, I would love to hear what you think, but I think a lot of times when we make a film, there isn't a direct storyline. The goal is to draw the audience in, to make them curious and to make them feel something that they wouldn't have otherwise felt before watching the film. I think it's really personal on a person-to-person basis, but I think I would love for them to feel connected to the space, and to feel like that sense of loss or displacement isn't necessarily as scary as it might have felt in the beginning of the film.
Right.
Yeah. I think something that comes to mind for me is that something that I think Maya and I talked about a lot for Ghost Town was, and also just in terms of the subject matter that we were dealing with, was that there wasn't necessarily a climax, like a full climax or a full, this is kind of where this film is going or trying to say, because I think that so much of this time has been about, what are we doing here? How are we living our lives, and rethinking and hibernating also. I think hibernation is something I've been thinking about a lot, is like we've all had to kind of do that, and we're sort of starting to come out again and rethinking how we're supposed to live together. And so I think that's something that Ghost Town is speaking to for me is, you know, I would love for the audience to come away with this feeling of, oh, this took me somewhere and now we're somewhere new. I'm not exactly sure where that is necessarily, or that experience or that understanding of where that might be would be different for each person who experiences the film, I think. But that they went somewhere and we took them somewhere new, and they arrived at some kind of feeling of transformation or understanding, even very small. But I think that's really what the film does for me, is it was this process of kind of sifting through and arriving somewhere new.
I
Yeah.
love that you guys said that. That's so impactful. And I think too, if I can just add, not having been a part of the process, but just hearing you two really talk about Ghost Town, I think it will actually also serve as a reminder to people, you know, because we're not out of the woods with COVID yet, and there's still a lot of precaution, there's still a lot of rules and regulations and laws around it, but life is picking back up. And I think it'll also be a good reminder to people to say, hey, remember that time during COVID where you really had to sit with yourself, figure out what's important to you, who you wanted to be around, maybe change careers or start a different passion or a hobby. I think it'll also be a good reminder to kind of have that another internal assessment now that everything is starting to pick back up. So I love that you guys were able to take us on a journey with this film.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Love that. Yay. Well, I do have one last question for you. And Maya, you kind of touched on it earlier, but what does it mean to have Ghost Town be a part of the 20th anniversary for the Garden State Film Festival? I mean, that's an amazing accomplishment. So how are you guys feeling? Like, what does it mean to be a part of it?
Honestly, it's pretty unbelievable. I mean, we're both just so excited.
So excited. Yeah. So delighted.
I think it's going to be amazing to be able to walk and see the films and then pass through the casino building where we filmed and just have those memories come together. I'm just so excited. And I'm also really excited to be going to a live event. I haven't been to one in a very long time.
Same here.
Yeah.
I cannot wait. Well, for those of you who are wondering how you get the chance to watch Ghost Town will actually be filming and playing on Sunday, March 27th from 2:45 to 4:45 p.m. at the Berkeley Hotel. So it sounds like we're going to see you two ladies there. I'm sure people are going to have lots of questions. You get to go back and reminisce about the good times of filming and producing it. And I will also be there. So I'm so excited to watch the film, to talk to you guys afterwards, and really hear some great questions I know you guys are going to get. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Adele.
And thank you for the color coordination as well.
Yes, for sure.
All on the same wavelength today.
Love it. Well, thank you guys again.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye.